G'day ladies and gentlemen, how you all doing? Scotty D here with the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network to bring you the next installment in the Warhammer 40,000 for the New Guys series. Now, as you know, this series we're continuing to look at the various factions in Warhammer 40k, discussing a myriad of topics about them so you get a good understanding of the faction if you're wanting to pick them up as the next faction you're playing for 40k, or if you're jumping into 40k for the first time. Now, I want to thank everyone who has joined us here on the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network in recent times. It's really awesome to see all the subscribers and all the likes and comments on the videos as well, and I hope that you are enjoying the variety of content we are creating here on the network and what we'll be doing going forward. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into it. Alrighty everyone, so today's video is specifically looking at the pros and cons of the Adeptus Custodes, and these are going to be 3 of each to give you a good idea of what they're like to play and collect as a faction. So to start off with, we're going to be starting off with the 3 pros, and the first one is they are very durable. Now, Adeptus Custodes are one of the factions in the game that are one of the more durable armies that you can get started with. All of the main Custodes units, from Custodian Guard to Allurus Custodians and Virtuous Praetors and the alike, all have a relatively high toughness, multiple wounds with high armor saves on all of their models and units that you're going to be able to take in your army. This means that your opponent's actually going to have to dedicate a solid amount of firepower with a significant amount of AP to even try and get some damage through to kill even a single Adeptus Custode within your army. Now, this does come with some downsides, however, that we're going to talk about in the cons as well. The second one is they are excellent in melee and do have some good ranged firepower. Now, the Adeptus Custodes deal the majority of their damage in close combat, and you'll notice a lot of their core rules when we get into them do relate to close combat a lot more than shooting. Now, this is down to multiple factors that most of the units have got multiple attacks on them with high AP weaponry, generally -3 or -4, meaning that even the smallest unit of Custodes will be able to decimate entire enemy units that are double or triple their size, with maybe taking 1 or 2 casualties in response. This is also backed up with a decent ranged firepower that is more anti-infantry focused than anti-tank, unless you're playing Virtuous Praetors with the salvo launchers. It also means that when you're going against infantry targets, you're able to soften them up with your anti-infantry firepower before charging in to close combat to finish off those units as well. And the third pro for the Adeptus Custodes is that they have a low cost of entry. They are one of the few armies that do have a low cost of entry into actually playing Warhammer 40k compared to a lot of the other factions in the game. And by having the 2 pros accounts for that, because you're paying a higher points cost per model because of the quality of toughness, armor saves, number of wounds, number of attacks, and how good they are in close combat and decent with shooting, and how durable they are. So keep that in mind when you are picking up this army. However, this does mean that compared to the majority of the other factions, you don't have to purchase as much either. It means that a box of 5 Custodian Guard can give you a HQ, and a unit of 4 Custodian Guard can get you up to like 350-ish points with max upgrades on things. So that's something to bear in mind as well. You'll also see this pro in a bit more detail when we get to the start in the army and the next steps videos for the Adeptus Custodes, where you'll see this in action in terms of how many points you're getting, how many models you're getting, and how much you're spending. Now, we will be jumping into the 3 cons for the Adeptus Custodes, and the first one is they are an elite army. Now, as I had mentioned with that last pro, the Adeptus Custodes are a more expensive point per model army, which results in you needing less models in your army at various points levels. Now, this does lead them to be one of the more elite factions of the game in terms of model count, as well as the unit options that you have access to from their base codex as they currently stand. This means that during your games, you'll need to dedicate your units appropriately to what you need them to do, and often each unit will need to do a fair amount of work for you to actually get the points worth out of them that you are spending to actually field them. So that means they're going to have to maybe kill 2 units of intercessors from Space Marines to get their points back for a 4-man unit of Custodian Guard, for example. Now, the second con is that they do have limited options from Games Workshop directly. Now, unless you choose to purchase some of the Adeptus Custodes options from Forge World or convert up some of the plastic kits, you're going to be limited with the kits that you're able to use and units you're able to take if you were just solely purchasing the plastic kits from Games Workshop themselves. Now, whilst they do have a various amount of options within the kit, unless, as I said, unless you decide to convert those Forge World units up, you're going to be limited with what actual look in the army and units you'll have at your disposal when playing your games as well. So do bear that in mind. If you like having a lot of diverse units, and you're not keen on going into Forge World and getting Forge World products, then maybe this army mightn't be the best choice for you. And then the third con is all of the models are extremely high detailed miniatures. Now, this being the last con of the Adeptus Custodes is more of a hobbying con rather than a gameplay con, because once you paint them up really nicely and get them looking amazing, they look phenomenal as miniatures. However, they are extremely detailed, meaning that you need to dedicate a lot of time to painting them up to get them looking great. And it can also be quite daunting to paint these guys up if they are your first faction choice of playing Warhammer 40k. So don't be afraid to take your time with painting them up and asking others for help from experienced hobbyists, or feel free to look up YouTube tutorials from another miniature wargaming content creators on how to start painting in general, as well as starting to paint up Adeptus Custodes as well. And remember that there is no wrong way to paint your miniatures. You can paint them up as you would like. The tutorials and the advice that you would look at from other content creators and other miniature wargamers you would get is more about how to tackle painting, the amount of detail on them and the various techniques you can use, rather than how to actually go about physically painting them. But that there, ladies and gentlemen, are the 3 pros and the 3 cons for the Adeptus Custodes. Alrighty everyone, well I hope that you have enjoyed this next installment for the Adeptus Custodes in this series. It's really been interesting to look at the faction because I do have quite a few Custodes players locally, so seeing what their armies look like, how they put them together, as well as online reading about them and trying to understand the faction has been really insightful, and I hope that that has come across in terms of the pros and the cons as to why you may or may not go with this army. Now, if you haven't already, ladies and gentlemen, and you did enjoy this video, feel free to like the video. If you haven't already as well, why don't you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you're able to be notified about when we are releasing more content over here on the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network, from battle reports to tournament games to more competitive discussion and in-depth competitive looks at factions, in addition to some hobbying best practices and things like that that are going to be coming out soon as well. Now, if you did want to have more of a discussion about the Adeptus Custodes or get some more hobbying tips and advice from myself, then feel free to head over to Twitch and follow the Australis TWN's Twitch channel, where we do a myriad of content from tournament previews to competitive roundtables to tournament coverage live from events across the Australian Southeast region, as well as hobbying streams from myself, as well as keeping up to date with what's going on in the South Pacific ITC rankings and so much more. You never know what's going to be happening each week, so you're going to want to make sure you're following our socials as well. But ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.